All right. Hey, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on which side of Canada you're on. And today, Sheila and I are almost on exactly polar opposite sides of the country. Today is Thursday, October 9th. We're just a couple of days ahead of Thanksgiving weekend. And I am your regular host of our daily live stream news and opinion live stream today, Tamara Ugolini, and I'm joined by my colleague and friend who is turning into the princess of ostriches alongside Drea Humphrey there at the Edgewood Farm in rural British Columbia. Sheila, how is it going on the farm this morning?
Uh, you know, it's festive. Drea is obviously the mayor of Ostrich Town, and I'm happy to be the diplomatic envoy from the Free State of Alberta to Universal Ostrich Farms. It's quiet here this week, but this morning, it's kind of jazzy. They're playing some upbeat music. They're playing a little bit of rave music earlier. And it's a really, really sunny, nice day. And I think everybody is really hopeful that these birds will survive until 2 local time tomorrow, which is 5 Eastern, which means the federal court will be going on Thanksgiving break without rendering a decision about whether or not these birds will be culled. Because right now we're in just waiting mode, stasis mode, while the federal court makes a decision to allow the Supreme Court to hear the case of the birds. And I'll give you a little hint about what I've been working on, because we're just waiting and we're just sort of monitoring what's happening at the farm here. But I reached out to some international ostrich associations to see what they had to say about this. And the Americans were real quick to get back to me. Actually, the president of their association got back to me with some interesting science that I don't think has been considered in all of this. Things I didn't even know. And Drea didn't know. And I mean, like I said, she's the mayor of Ostrich Town, and they had some interesting science to pass on our way about the avian flu versus ratites, which is what an ostrich is. It's not considered poultry. It's in a different category with like uh, emus and kiwi birds. They're a different sort of bird, and there is new and different science when considering the transmission of avian flu to ratites. So I'll have a story about that later on. But yeah, just holding tight here at the ostrich farm, soaking in ostrich farm culture. And yesterday I went out to check out the kill pen that they've erected, where I anticipate they'll corral the birds when it comes to execution day. And they've erected the same sort of privacy fencing to like around the hay bales that they've put up. I think actually they're straw, to be precise. And I haven't seen that sort of fencing since Jason Kenney was obscuring churches from the view of protesters when he took Grace Life Church away from its congregation. So nostalgia there. Government overreach loves to hide behind those privacy fences. And just like as a farmer, I'm not sure they should be stacking those large squares 5 high in single stacks, which is what they appear to be. That's really dangerous. It's really tippy. But who am I to tell these people how to kill ostriches?
Yeah, and you say when the call happens. So I want to point back if and when the call happens, because
Yes.
the crazy thing about this story is that the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, has taken over the pen and the areas where the ostriches live and congregate.
Yeah.
And so they're, by all intents and purposes, responsible for
Right.
the continued livelihoods of these ostriches that they are hell bent on killing and culling.
Right.
And so there's been some sketchy and risks and sketchy things happening there. The CFIA cut all of the security cameras, the personal farm security cameras of the
Yeah.
property owners as they took control of the area that the ostriches live. They've built this kill pen in anticipation that the court will rule in favor of the cull. I would say would really be a horrible time to make that order ahead of Thanksgiving weekend, where you traditionally, and I get that ostriches aren't poultry, but where the traditional dinner is a turkey dinner. And what weird timing that would be if the courts decide to go ahead with this ahead of a Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. I really hope that it will wait until thereafter. But as it waits, this just bleeds taxpayer resources
Oh,
into the CFIA, who's taken aggressive and overreaching measures to assert their dominance over the property rights and the animal rights of these farmers and their ostriches.
right. This is exactly what happened with COVID, where some government official decided there's only one way to deal with this, and they need to be unchanging, and they'll punish anybody who tries to challenge the unscientificness of the rules in front of them. They're just like just linear rule followers to a fault. And as we know, these ostriches, they represent natural immunity, and we're not supposed to know about those things anymore. And they're, once those security cameras were cut earlier last week, actually, it was the day of the stay, right? It was the day of
Mhm.
the stay that they were cutting those security cameras. Then an ostrich dies, according to the farm, for lack of care at the hands of the CFIA, and now they seem to have concerns about a few other birds. And I'm slightly conspiracy minded, and I think I come by that honestly after the last 5 years. It's real easy to make the case for these birds are being sick if they're being neglected into illness at the hands of the CFIA, and I think there's some of that happening here as well.
100, absolutely. And imagine the narrative that would be able to be painted unquestionably if we didn't have boots on the ground at the farm through independent media like Rebel News and others who are, saying, we're not going to let the other side of this story go untold. And you would be believing the mainstream media and their parroted virologists, immunologists, doctors that they recycle over and over again, who have nothing to do with this story, who have no experience with ostriches, ostensibly know nothing about them biologically, claiming, oh, we cannot be sure if they're in fact healthy and uncontaminated. And you would think, if you trusted your state broadcaster that all of us have to fund, regardless of whether or not we want to, that injured hen died from the avian flu, right? They would use
Right.
that as a catalyst to justify further imposing these measures when in fact there's a counter there that I saw at the farm showing how many days, I think it's 266 or 67 at this point, days
Yeah.
that the ostriches have been healthy, dancing. Some of Drea's videos showed them mating. They
Yep.
did have a pen for injured hens where they couldn't necessarily go out into the general population. One, I think, had a broken toe, some other knee or leg injury, and they were just kind of recovering. I think the one that ended up dying, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheila, they said that that particular hen likely would never be able to reintegrate into the general population because of the injuries. And
Right. And the
so,
injuries, I should note, the injuries were sustained, according to the farm, again, at the hands of the surveillance apparatus here that's working at the behest of the CFIA. So we have um, uh, RCMP drones that are flying constantly. And according to the farm, that injured hen's spirit was spooked by one of these RCMP drones. And these birds can run 14 miles an hour. What is that, like 75 kilometers an hour? And she ran straight into a fence and injured her leg. And then, according to the farm, was not given the appropriate care that an exotic animal needed, and the CFIA didn't have the capacity to take care of this animal in the way that it should have. And then it languished for lack of care, which, if you were a beef producer and you didn't give care to your animal and it died of neglect, you would be facing animal cruelty charges. But because the CFIA has control of this farm, we're just supposed to pretend like that animal wasn't neglected to death.
yeah, and I would argue that from their point of view, it's one last bird that they'll have to worry about if and when their kill order is granted. So I don't know what kind of ethical considerations we can imply by an agency patiently awaiting and still preparing for a mass cull, despite the fact that the courts have stayed the order and it's all in limbo. I don't imagine that they would be quick to maintain or keep good health of this flock, which has been an ongoing concern of the farmers when the CFIA took control of these ostriches. And these are massive birds. Like I've repeated a few different times.
They're
I think
huge.
the average weight is something like 300 to 350 pounds. This is not a small undertaking. And you can see we have some aerial footage here from our video journalist, Sydney Vizard, who shows just the scale and the breadth of this hay bale wall. I think this is about 55 seconds of viz that we can just show here across the farm. And I mean, it's a quarter of a field.
Yeah.
It looks like to me. And I don't know how they'll end up undertaking this work if and when it goes through, but that is a massive, massive job. Sheila, how many CFIA agents would you say are there, and I guess RCMP as well?
So I was talking to Katie Sydney last night, and she said there's approximately 100 RCMP officers coming and going from the area. Now, they're not all on the farm. In fact, I would note that the RCMP presence at the gate to the field, the ostrich pens, is a lot less than it was last week, although it's a lot less heated here than it was last week. As they were awaiting the stay, it was pretty tense around here. That's not the case now. But in and around the area, and I think maybe I'll go out a little bit later and just tootle around and get some footage of where the RCMP are. They have a massive staging area up the road, where they're also putting their biohazardous material, whatever that means. And they have their little drone station up the road. There's a checkpoint. They're in every field. If you're staying at the farm all night long, it's red and blue cherries just going all night. And, it's difficult to sleep when it's like that. Imagine what that's like for the birds who are exposed to this constant irritation at the hands of the police. Like it's day and night.
Yeah, that's a good point, because Daisy Media, I think this is about just a minute and a half clip here. Maybe we can just show this clip from Chris at Daisy Media showing the RCMP conducting a drone crew in the night, which I thought is in contravention to, like, they have to cease operations, or perhaps it's just specific to the cull order that they can't act between, what was it, 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. or something like that?
Right. So on the farm, operations have to be set aside between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. But the RCMP drones are out all night. And I mean, it's stressful enough on people, but imagine the birds who used to live a very peaceful existence out here in not the middle of nowhere, but it's fairly remote and not all that populated here. Town's a little bit up the road, but then they have a red and blue lights going all night and drones going all night overhead. If anybody actually cares about the welfare of the birds, and I think the protesters do and the farmers definitely do, but I'm not sure the CFIA do, this is a lot of added stress to the flock here, for sure, especially when there's already concerns about the care being given to them by the CFIA.
Yeah. Can we show a few, maybe the last 30 seconds or from 30 seconds onward of Daisy's clip?
Interesting. Yeah, this is a little interesting. Like, why would there be so many drone operators at night? First of all, like generally we saw two SUVs, one drone kind of thing. One, two, three. And night ops too. Like what do they do? Like, so they probably have, I guess, like some type of night vision capability, thermal, who knows what. There's a lot of them over there though. And that's not to say that anything's afoot necessarily. It's just anomalous as to what we're used to, and curious as to what it might be. Yeah. So it's pretty dark, but the drone is at least one now in the air. You can hear the guttural ostrich sounds in the background, but That's at least the green facing. So saw the red a second ago, so it must have been pivoted away from me. But as you can see clearly, RCMP drone night operations and a much larger than usual drone crew presence.
Yeah, there you go. And I see that the farm has sent out a massive letter late last night, or well, 8 o'clock-ish last night. And they're calling on everybody to call. They list a number here. It's from Ostrich Farm BC, and the X account is Save Our Ostriches. And with the number, call 250-870-8246. And they've called on opposition leader Pierre Poilievre, Danielle Smith, Scott Moe, Doug Ford, Tim Houston, basically all conservative politicians, leaders, to write on behalf of thousands of Canadians, maybe, and they say maybe even hundreds of thousands of Canadians who are appalled by the heavy-handed actions of the CFIA, and to back them up, that the CFIA is not providing adequate or required veterinarian care. They're skirting all of these pieces of legislation and jurisdiction, including animal rights, and obviously, as we know, skirting the property rights and farm rights. And so they've sent this lengthy, I won't read it all, but this lengthy letter calling on these conservative leaders to back them and call on the Liberals to pull back this CFIA order, and at the very least, wait until the court has made a decision. This limbo, this preparing for a cull that may never actually take place, is such an overreach and a massive waste of resources.
It's ghoulish. It's ghoulish to have this like ostrich extermination camp set up where they're like, here's a little tiny security fence. You won't even know what's going on here. Like, it's horrific that the farmers have to live next door to this. These are research birds. They're akin to pets. Like, look, I'm a farmer, and a hunter. So seeing animals die, it doesn't bother me. It's the circle of life. But that my emotions towards animals has nothing to do with it. What's happening here? These are the property of the farmer here. And these farmers are entitled to due process. And there's like this one size fits all garbage with the CFIA and the avian flu protocols doesn't take into consideration that what they're doing here. Because as I noted earlier in a meeting we had together, they say, well, this is just what happens. They call it depopulating the flock. And they say, well, some farms have had to be depopulated 3 times, some poultry barns. The average lifespan of a broiler, like your chicken breast chicken in the store, is like 6 weeks from hatching to butchery. 6 weeks. So if they get depopulated 3 times, what's that? 18 weeks worth of work. This is 40 years for one flock. There has to be a different consideration here for what they're losing. Oh, someone's ringing the dinner bell here. I think it's
and we saw that
second breakfast.
If COVID was any indicator as to the sweeping harms caused by indiscriminate one-size-fits-all top-down orders, diktats, edicts, we saw the harm that caused, and it was entirely unjustified. And so I think that if we don't resist this tiptoe, it's only going to continue to get worse. And the farm obviously recognizes that as well, and has taken steps and fought tooth and nail to resist the CFIA's unjustified, nonsensical cull order. Now, just wrapping up on the ostriches, I want to let everybody know that we do have a really fun shirt in the Rebel News store. It's keep your head out of the sand with a
general shirt. It's an
Yeah.
evergreen shirt. It's not just ostrich palooza related. This is an evergreen shirt as you're facing any sort of government tyranny or media brainwashing.
Yeah, keep your head out of the sand. Just general good advice here from us at Rebel News. But you can get your shirt by heading over to rebelnewsstore.com. And then you can also use code ostrich10 for 10% off of your order. And it's the gift that keeps on giving, because as Sheila said, it's not just exclusive to what's happening at the ostrich farm, but just in general, be aware and stay awake. Keep your head out of the sand. And then, of course, if you want to continue to follow their coverage at the ostrich farm, if you want to get any background context, Drea has been on this story for, I think, the better part of nine months now.
Yeah.
You can do so at savetheostriches.com. That's a special website that houses all of Drea's previous reports, everything that's going on right in the here and now. Sometimes there's live streams are reposted there. If there's something crazy happening at the farm, either of you go live, then we just repost it. So you can stay up to date and, of course, support Rebel journalists and crew being there on the ground to give you this other side of the story that you won't hear from mainstream media, who's reporting just from afar in some distant office on what's happening at the ostrich farm, recycling their standard talking point immunologists, virologists who have no idea what's actually happening on the farm with these birds. You would think maybe even the CBC would reach out to the veterinarian. That was a story that we published yesterday. Drea interviewed the veterinarian when he came to the farm to assess what was going on. You don't hear any of that on the mainstream. So if you want to support our coverage there, travel expenses and this continued kind of like living essentially at this farm.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
We're basically living here. Drea is in a rented camper van. And when I say van, I mean van. I don't mean motorhome. Hers is equipped with Starlink, but that costs money. And it should be noted, like the CBC, $1.5 billion a year, another $150 million on top of that from Mark Carney, plus all these exclusive government contracts and government advertising. You think they could send somebody out here, but they don't. I'm here with my personal vehicle. I drove like some 12, 13 hours to be here. My personal trailer, like my personal RV, I brought it with me. So that's my HQ. But there's no electricity here, so we're running generators and solar panels, and I'm using my personal Starlink, and that costs money. So if you want to donate to cover our costs, to make sure that you have on the ground factual coverage of things as it happens, even just that you have people here who are documenting the misdeeds of the CFIA. You can go to savetheostriches.com, and there's all sorts of other different ways on that page that you can get involved. As Tamara said, you can see all of our coverage. You can also, I think there's a send an email option there too, and to support our work here. Hey, Tamara, before we hit an ad break, we did the very David Menzies thing of getting so excited about the topics today that we forgot to tell people how to get involved in the show and have their say. If you are watching us on Rumble, thanks for supporting a great free speech platform. If you want to support our work and have your say, consider leaving us a Rumble rant. That's your paid chat over there. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, we're going to read it on air. If it's under that, we'll do our best time. And Starlink connection pending. If you are watching us on YouTube, their paid chat is a super chat. But if you are watching the recorded version of the show and you feel compelled to support our work here, you can leave a paid comment called a super thanks, and the same rules apply. I think that's it. Should we hit an ad break?
Sounds
and then
good.
Come right back.
Send us some chats, but here's an ad first.
Rebel News now has premium memberships on X, Locals, and right here on YouTube. For just $4.99 a month on YouTube, you'll get loyalty badges, custom emojis, and access to members-only chats during our live streams. At $8.99 a month, you'll also unlock Rebel News Plus shows and our documentaries. But here's the catch. YouTube could cancel that premium tier at any time. That's why the best way to support us is at rebelnewsplus.com. It's just $8 a month, cheaper if you go annual, and you'll get exclusive extras like an ad-free site, comments access, and even the chance to submit op-eds. Wherever you join us, thanks for keeping our independent journalism alive and strong.
All right.
Hey, but
back.
sorry, I just want to mention, sorry if you mentioned it, I didn't hear it. If you want any of those ostrich shirts and you want a discount, ostrich 10 at rebelnews.com is live. You can use that one, or live stream 10. Both of those coupon codes are live right now for 10% off that ostrich shirt or anything else that you want at rebelnewsstore.com. And that's another great way to support our work, but also tell the world that you are a rebel too. And by the way, I see those shirts turning up in CBC's coverage of
I think it's Roundup. It's Roundup.
Oh, is it
10.
Rebel Roundup? Sorry,
Just Roundup. Yeah.
Roundup 10. Sorry, but ostrich 10 is also
Might be
live.
easier.
So Roundup 10. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
I can't
Tamara,
wait
take it away.
I can't wait to get one of those shirts. They're really new. So get yours now, because again, it's one that doesn't go stale, so to speak. But anyway, okay, so we have some US Canada coverage, Carney versus Trump. Last night, so we know, I believe it was last week, Trump started the process to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. Well, meanwhile, here in Canada, we have our own journalist in Montreal, Alexa Lavoie, with a breaking expose showing that the Department of National Defense may just be employing an Antifa cell who can just hop on a call and quickly sick his Antifa friends onto a journalist who's questioning him about his affiliations with Antifa, especially when he is alleged to have thrown the smoke bomb into a Montreal church during Sean Foyt's worship visit earlier this summer. And we can look no further to our southern neighbors who have recognized the disturbing conduct and violent conduct of Antifa, so much so that it's now been designated a terrorist organization. Have a listen to Trump's words.
Antifa?
A foreign terror organization.
Well, has that been done? Pretty close, right? Would you like to see it done?
Yes, Mr. President.
You think it would help?
They have foreign
I'd be
links
glad
all
to
across
do it. I
Western
think it's
Europe.
the kind of thing I'd like to do. If you'd like, does
Middle
everybody
East.
agree? If you agree, I agree. Let's get it done, okay? Let's get it done. Marco, we'll take care of it.
Mr. President.
That's international, you mean?
Yes.
International.
Yes, Mr. President.
Sounds good to me.
Foreign terror organization.
Steve, are you okay with it?
Yes, it's true. There are extensive foreign ties, and I think that would be a very valid step to take.
Good, I think so too.
Yes.
Good, I think it's a good point. Thank you.
So this actually goes above and beyond just the designation of them being designated a terrorist organization in the United States. They're now being designated as a foreign terror organization with international ties and connections. And you can look no further to your northern neighbors to see that that is in fact a reality. So Sheila, what do you think this means for Canada and this breaking expose that Alexa has uncovered?
This is a big problem for the Carney administration. That's for darn sure. This is Trump willing to treat Antifa the same way you would treat ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, the way they rightfully should be treated. But if I were a member of the NDP who are making excuses for Antifa or whipping up Antifa mobs to come attack peaceful protesters who simply say maybe immigration is too high, Charlie Angus, I think you should be worried about your ability to travel to the United States, and rightfully so. Anybody who has been going around saying Antifa, that's simply anti-fascist, who's a prominent Canadian. You should probably be worried about the next time you cross the American border, because you might just rightfully be turned away, the same way an ISIS or an Al-Qaeda supporter should be turned away from the United States. Maybe they'll get their behavior in check around here, but I severely doubt it.
Yeah, Antifa claims to be anti-fascist and then conducts themselves exactly like fascists. I remember there was
it's a neat marketing technique that they have going there, and the dumbest of Canadians fall for it. And by the dumbest of Canadians, I mean those in the mainstream media.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a super chat here from Alex Greer. It says, keep up the investigative reporting. And then he gives another amount there as well. Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah, Alexa's report should be international news. This should be on the desk of the President of the United States, especially as he declares Antifa a terrorist organization and now a foreign terrorist organization. This should be on his desk, and media should be asking President Trump what he thinks about a suspected Antifa cell in the Canadian National Defense. That is a disturbing, absolutely disturbing hit on our public security, on our national security. And what do you have the police and the DND and the RCMP doing about any of it? Basically nothing.
You know what? In a sane country, Alexa Lavoie would be called to testify at SECU, that's the Public Safety Committee. And the Conservatives should be calling her to testify at SECU about her investigation. And the Public Safety Minister, Gary Anandasangari, with ties to terrorists of his own, he should be called after her testimony to have to answer for what her journalism has uncovered in within the Department of National Defense. And our National Defense Minister should also be called to testify. Our public institutions, allegedly, have been infiltrated. By the way, what have we heard about what's going on in the military? Oh, we have to be worried about the far right infiltrating the Department of National Defense. Oh, we got to be worried about them Proud Boys. You've got an Antifa cell in the DND, and everybody has just got, again, their heads in the sand about this issue. They're hoping it can go away. And I think the onus is on the Conservatives to raise this issue in the House of Commons, to raise this issue at committee. Otherwise, it's going to go away because the Liberals want it to. It's not going to get raised in the mainstream media. So they've got to do their job, and they've got to start bringing this up in the places that the Conservative MPs can.
Yeah, and as you see in that visual that we were showing there, Gabriel Lepage, I believe is how his last name is pronounced, LinkedIn profile, the shoes he was wearing while he threw that smoke bomb.
Ugly New Balances,
the same ones that he was wearing on the street when Alexa approached him, leaving his job at a military base. And it's outrageous that this continues to fester in the Canadian security space without question. In fact, there's allegations that, you know, the higher ups warned people within the department not to speak to media about any of this. Keep it hush hush. Let's sweep it under the rug and hope that it goes away, instead of addressing the elephant in the room, is that this poses a major and massive national security threat. So with that said, let's move on, because I see that we're running out of time as per usual.
Always.
Yeah.
Let's go to Mark Carney. He did his best to undermine any prospect of peace in the Gaza Strip by rewarding Palestinian terrorists with support for a state before Trump was able to strike a peace deal. And now Carney is weighing in on the peace deal that Trump brokered despite his undermining. I wonder what he has to say about that. I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't seen this, so you're going to get my hot take as soon as we're done.
It is a day for optimism. I want to salute, of course, President Trump, whose decisive leadership has made this possible, Mr. Kushner, Mr. Witkoff, the Qataris, the Egyptians, Turkey. who've been essential to getting to this moment. The next 48 hours are crucial. We urge the parties, particularly Hamas, to follow through, release all the hostages, and including the deceased hostages. The President and I discussed in the White House how Canada can support this process. We are supporting with humanitarian aid. There's other mechanisms that we can do to support it. And I urge, as I say, I urge all parties. We're encouraged. We're encouraged, but it's the first phase, and there's more to come. Thank you. It is.
Lots of and ums to get through to actually try to sift through the actual point and merit of what he's getting at there. But this seems to me, Sheila, and I'm looking forward to your hot take, but this is in direct contravention to Hamas's constitution. So
right,
they're hoping that they'll come to the table, but I wouldn't bank on it.
Well, and like I said before we watched this, Carney did everything he could to undermine this peace deal. He rewarded the terrorists and butchers of Hamas with the recognition of a state before the hostages were released, before they came to the table to discuss peace. He said, you know what? October 7th, you move the needle, here's a state. Completely undermining the American efforts on this. And many European countries did the same. Shame on them. Shame on them. But I'm proud of the moral courage exhibited by the Americans when you have all the fancy people, the progressive fancy people of the world saying, no, 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 we got to give them their state and then they'll be nice to us. Trump said, no, this is how we're going to do it. These are the conditions under which it's going to happen. And it's up to them to abide by it. Thank goodness for the Americans and their strong ethical foreign policy on this issue in stark contravention, or stark contrast, I should say, to the way the Canadians and many European countries dealt with this.
Yeah, and obviously Carney, as he kind of slunks over and tries to formulate some sort of verbiage, word salad out of his mouth, looking to the leadership, that strong leadership of the United States, in an attempt to kind of just I think he's just riding the coattails of that strong leadership and again, hoping for the best, but I would not be I'm not holding my breath, that's for sure. And then of course we had various ministers at the White House earlier this week trying to get these tariffs, trying to find some reprieve from the tariffs, have them lifted. But Lutnick today or yesterday, evening dismisses any prospect of an auto deal between Canada and the US. I don't know if we have a clip. I don't think we have a clip of this, but you know, I think Trump also made it very clear during that meeting, and I believe we do have a clip of that like they want to bring manufacturing home. He has been very clear this whole time. He campaigned on bringing manufacturing back to the US. And so now they're following through, and it's like, sorry, Canada, I mean, it's been a year, more than a year at this point. We have had more than a year to figure it out. And instead they're just keep kind of coming back like, please just work, please. And they're like, no.
Well, and there are things that the Canadians could have done. Doug Ford could have done things because so much of the auto sector is in Ontario. We used to have this idea in Alberta, and I think we still have it, but it was like an official policy of Ralph Klein way back in the day. It was called the Alberta Advantage. And the Alberta Advantage was whatever they're doing somewhere else, we're going to do it cheaper here, in that we will make it more affordable for you to patriate your business to Alberta. And we saw a massive influx of people from Saskatchewan who were under horrific NDP rule. And, you know, we made it cheaper. We dropped our business taxes. We didn't and still don't have a provincial sales tax. And it was all these.
Oh, I think we may be losing Sheila to the farm's lackluster connection capabilities. So
he just didn't do any of it.
Oh,
sorry,
we
lost
may have
me.
Sorry, yeah.
Am I back?
I think you're back. We lost you for a few minutes there, unfortunately, a few seconds.
Yes. I was just saying that there are things that Doug Ford could have done to make it more affordable to produce things and grow things in Ontario. There are things within Doug Ford's control. He just didn't do any of those things. You know, he didn't drop the provincial sales tax. He could lower that, get rid of it altogether. We don't have one in Alberta. Property tax, gas tax, all the things, all the price inputs into manufacturing things, those are within the province's control. Doing things to incentivize people to build and grow things in Ontario, he just didn't do any of those. He was just like, we're going to fight the Americans. And now look what you've got.
He literally said, we're going to cut them off. Doug
Right.
Ford wanted to cut them off and make them suffer through cutting off their electricity.
Right.
If that doesn't instigate a retaliation, I don't know what does, but in my opinion, those are fighting words, and you don't go into and approach your closest neighbor and ally, your closest partner in trade and economic strength, and threaten to cut them off of electricity. It's just the way that this whole situation has been approached is insane. And it's been like a back and forth through media instead of actually having a sit down discussion. And so here we are now a year later with nothing other than things that Trump has done to strengthen the US and bring their economy into productivity, and ours continues to stagnate, and we see investment fleeing the country unlike we've seen before. So
well, and if you, sorry to interrupt, but if you see Lutnick's statement, I was just reading through it there. He says he's still kind of nice to the Canadians, even though we've been treating them like garbage and like talking about them, well, not behind their backs, like literally to the media about how terrible they are and how awful they are and how we have to fight them and our relationship is over. He's still saying America just wants to be number one. You're welcome to be number two in this. And again, there are things that Doug Ford can do. Call it the Ontario advantage, as we did in Alberta with the Alberta advantage, stealing businesses from across the country and bringing them to Alberta with our low tax rates. He could do that in Ontario to fix things, but he's just not. Like, you could steal auto manufacturing from Europe if you wanted to, but he's not even trying to do that.
No, Doug Ford for the people. He can't actually
for the people
do things for the people. Okay, so we have, this is a long clip, so I don't think we'll play it all, but we have Poilievre in the House of Commons slamming Carney for promising Trump that he would drive $1 trillion out of our economy and into the American economy over the next 5 years. This is craziness. But here, maybe we'll just play the first minute or so.
Promised Canadians to, and I quote, negotiate a victory. He promised have a deal by July 21st, 2025. Still no deal, still no victory. And American tariffs have actually doubled. But today, the Prime Minister made his biggest concession of all. He promised to push $1 trillion of investment out of Canada into the United States of America, which will drive down Canadian wages and Canadian jobs. Why is it when the Prime Minister goes for lunch at the White House, it's Canadian workers on the menu?
That's right. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and his colleagues are at the White House today, advancing Canada's interests, advancing Canada's trade interests, advancing our interests in foreign policy generally. And I know that the hopes of all Canadians accompany our Prime Minister to those meetings where he will very, very clearly defend the rights of Canadian workers and of the Canadian economy. I sure hope the Leader of the Opposition is among those Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister casually said, and I quote, $500 billion in the last 5 years alone of Canadian investment has left to the U.S. And he said probably $1 trillion in the next 5 years if we get the agreement that we expect to get. In other words, he made a massive $1 trillion concession before the deal was even signed and without getting anything in return. $1 trillion of exit investment means closing mines and factories in Canada and opening them in the U.S. Why did the Prime Minister sell out our workers on his visit to Washington?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, we do not need Donald Trump's permission to open mines and roads and infrastructure in Canada. That's exactly what we're going to be doing, is building Canada with Canadian labor, Canadian steel, Canadian aluminum, and Canadian lumber. If he's referring to the Maple 8, the pension funds that Canadians are so proud of and invest in, who invest all over the world and take their profits back to Canada to pay Canadian pensions, well, I say bring that on too, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, anyway, they've had 10 years to do all of that work. And we have just seen complete stagnation from the Liberal government instead of opening up and unleashing Canada's development and economic freedom and our national resources. So to get up there in the House of Commons 10 years later and say we're going to be doing this,
we're going to fix this. We're going to fix this thing we broke.
Right.
Like, it's the stupidest thing. I hope they find the people who've been in charge in the last 10 years. Like, what have we gotten? 800% over budget government funded pipeline? That's what we've gotten? And nothing else? And then they're wondering why American companies are fleeing, Canadian companies are fleeing. TransCanada Energy had to change its name to TC Energy because being Canadian was stigmatizing to their business. Like, this is what the Liberals have done. They did this. The phone calls coming from inside of the House, they constantly prattle on about how they're going to fight the Americans. But these guys have to look in the mirror because they set the stage through a series of government policies that prevent us from building and exporting anything. And then now we're supposed to trust them to do it.
Yeah, now all of a sudden they're going to do the work to reverse all of their own impositions and policy implications. I, again, will not be holding my breath. Sheila, should we just go to one more quick ad break and then maybe we'll come back for the Daily Dose of Cringe?
Yeah, well, come back for the Daily Dose of Cringe. We'll clean up whatever chats you have. So guys, if you have them, get them in right now. And there's one little thing, and it's not a little thing, but I want to talk about it. I'm going to spring it on you, Tamara, and I'll explain to you what it's about. But it is loosely related, or actually probably directly related, to the current school strike that we have happening in Alberta. And it's going to irritate you, Tamara, I promise you, because I know that you are envious of our school choice system here in Alberta. So I want to get your opinion on what the unions are trying to do here in Alberta. So let's hit an ad break. We'll come right back.
There's a lot of work and preparation that has to go into getting them ready for the job market. It's not just about hammering out a resume. It's about making sure that they have the adequate supports. Some people don't often realize some of the struggles that some of these people go through. Not only are they connected to the work, but they're also connected to our whole mission and what we do as an organization.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA Hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
Okay. Let's talk about what's happening in Alberta. And I want to talk to Tamara about this because I think our school system here is, despite currently being on strike because the unions are a bunch of bullies, I think our government has actually played the school strike pretty well. Our teachers are striking for more money, but also they said, no, it's really about class sizes. So the province said, okay, here's 12% more in wages, plus 3,000 more teachers, 3,000. And they said, actually, we reject that. Can you just give us all the money? instead of giving us 3,000 more teachers. So I'm like, oh, I guess it's not about class size. And then the premier said, okay, fine, you're going to go on strike. Let's hunker down for the long haul. Guess what we're doing? We're taking the savings because we're not paying them teachers while they're on strike. And we're giving, I think it's $120, $150 per child under 12 so that parents can get childcare, put their kids in Montessori school, mathnasium, whatever, so they're not falling behind. So now they've taken the poison pill of the, oh my God, what are we going to do with our kids while the teachers are on strike? So now they've lost the parents, they've taken that pressure out of it. And the union, the ATA, ain't got no money. So they can't pay the teachers for a long strike. So we're going to bust the union here in Alberta. I can't be more pleased about it. So what is the union doing? Well, they have just fired up a citizen-led initiative. The teachers union is pushing to end Alberta's successful school choice system, even as they strike over failing public schools. So the unions are demanding more funding for a system and to force everybody into that system while campaigning to eliminate the alternatives that actually work. So they're backing a campaign to dismantle the province's education funding model that allows parents to choose the best schooling for their children regardless of income. And this is what's really special about Alberta is if you don't like the public school system, and that includes the Catholic school system, which in this province is actually Catholic as opposed to what you're doing in Ontario, which isn't Catholic at all. But if you don't like that, if that's not working for your kid, you can get together with a group of parents and actually start an accredited school. And it can be a religious school. It can be an outdoor academy. It can be a hockey school, a military school, the classical academies that are in Edmonton and Calgary. There's no real hindrance to you putting your kid in a private school in Alberta because the funding follows the child. And why shouldn't it? The parents are paying the taxes for education. You should be able to educate your child in the school of your choosing. And so for the teachers, they hate this, even though they prattle on about, oh, you know, like we got to help the poor kids. And we're like, yeah, we are. We're helping them get into better schools if they want, or whatever school they want. Well, the teachers unions now are advancing a citizen-led initiative to end our successful charter school program, where if you are a poor kid and you want to go to a classical academy in Alberta, it doesn't matter what your parents make, you can go. And I should tell you some of the numbers here. The people who use charter and private schools, it's not the rich elite in Alberta. It's people whose incomes are less than the median. So people who are not the average income, but under that, see putting their kids in specialized schooling as a way to sort of travel up the socioeconomic ladder. And these teachers unions, these lefty teachers unions are advancing a citizen-led initiative. They need to get 177,000 signatures on it to end that school choice program here in Alberta. It's just an absolute abomination, just shoehorning kids who are doing well. And by the way, these charter schools, they do well. They do better than the public schools. So of course you got to get rid of them because they're making them public schools and public school teachers look bad. And a lot of the teachers in the charter schools are not on strike because they're not unionized. So the kids who opted for charter schools and public schools and charter schools, private schools, and the academies, they're all at school right now. They're not on strike. Their teachers are happy. So we have to get rid of those because they are the benchmark for failure. And so we need to have nothing to compare it to in Alberta. I guess that's the plan. Tamara, what do you think about this as someone who has expressed envy about the Alberta school system?
Well, and not just the Alberta school system, but just that model that the funding should follow the child. I mean, that to me makes the most sense. This centralized control of the system is really as we've seen, it treats parents more as obstacles rather than partners in delivering education. And so the unions, of course, they don't want to have any sort of choice. They don't want parents to be involved. They just want, you know, as we see repeatedly, that government control, that top-down instruction without any wavering from the prevailing narrative. And I think that parents, not unions and not the government, should be choosing what is best for their children repeatedly in all these different areas, including even what we've spoken about today regarding the treatment of these ostriches. You have seen the one size fits all model fundamentally fail. And so what these unions are doing, it's not prioritizing children or their education. It's just trying to instill top-down centralized conformity. And we can see that that is not helping children flourish and grow and become individuals. It is just hammering them out to be the same mundane, repeated little boxes, putting them all into little boxes. And I have severe reservations that this will be successful in Alberta. And I just like repeatedly want to see this same model echoed in other provinces. I have gone to my MPP multiple times. I've asked him to bring it forward to whoever the education minister is at any moment of the day or the month, to simply just ask and answer, why don't we have education choice in Ontario? We have to pay this anyway. I think it's upwards of $14,000 a year per student now in Ontario. I'm not sure what it is in Alberta. But if parents had that and could funnel that into a school of their choosing, we're all about diversity. And so let's diversify the choice for families whose children don't necessarily fit into these little boxes and have their own needs and can thrive in a different environment. We see repeatedly how much of an inept failure the public school system is. And then they're trying to bring in, special students with special or extra needs and shoehorn them into this classroom where it's not only them that suffers trying to fit in with a classroom of children, but it's the 30 other children who are repeatedly disrupted throughout the day because of one or two students who don't have the tools that they need to be successful in the classroom being shoehorned in, and it's not benefiting anyone. So I think Alberta's model is one that we can all kind of lean more into and say, hey, look at what is working here, and let's ignore this union until they go away, because I really don't see how that can be successful. I mean, how many times do parents have to pivot and find education for their children when the government declares, or the unions declare, oh, we need to strike, we need more payment. Oh, look at how they acted during COVID. I mean, here in Ontario, we had the longest school shutdown of anywhere in the world. World, and parents had to pivot and say, well, we need to keep educating our children. And there are kids who never came back into the school system after COVID that we have literally no idea where they went, what happened to them, how they're being educated, and whether or not they're thriving. So I would say that giving parents an option for choice that is more reliable than what they're currently getting from the public system and from these union strangleholds is only a recipe for success. And except if you're the union head who is set to lose a lot of income as a result.
Yeah, it's funny, the unions, they wail and gnash their teeth here in Alberta. They say, oh, you spend less than the rest of the country on your kids. And so my response to that is, and look how high our outcomes are. We're doing better than everybody else. I think it's a pretty efficient system, and it's clear the unions are failing, the public system is failing. And so instead of looking at the charter and private system and saying, what are they doing over there that's working out so well, they have to get rid of the thing that they can be compared to, because those private schools are making the public system look real bad. And Tamara, if this were Alberta and you lived here, you could get together with 10 other families and start your own accredited school. If you found a way to deliver the programming that the province requires you to deliver in your own creative way, as long as you deliver the curriculum, you can do it in whatever creative way you want to. You could do that here because the funding would follow the child into your private school or charter school, whatever you wanted to do. And that's the way it used to be, right? The education was done in the community, by the community, and a lot of times by the church. But that's human history was. It's a very recent development that we have government-run schools telling us everything our kids need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another sell for Tamara moving to Alberta. Okay.
Real estate.
I know
Okay.
we need to run through these super chats. I don't, maybe we'll just skip over the daily dose of cringe for today. So we have a couple super chats that have rolled in. Just need to find myself here in the thread. Ryerson Gary gives $5. Tax cheat Carney has reached a level of corruption and sleaziness that Justin could only dream about. Yeah, I would argue that he was already there. It's just that we don't have a critical mainstream media who was reporting on any of it during the snap election. And don't forget, he was the guy whispering into Justin Trudeau's ear for the better part of 3 to 5 years pre-prorogation in January of this year. So I'm not surprised.
Right. And I should remind everybody that during that time, Mark Carney, when he was like the financial advisor, economics advisor to Justin Trudeau, he was the economics advisor to the leader of the Liberal Party instead of being the economics advisor to the prime minister. Same person, but one position doesn't require an ethics clearing, and that's working for the prime minister. So they put him working for the leader of the Liberal Party, which didn't require an ethics clearing, which means that for those 4 years, all kinds of decisions were made that were to the benefit of our Brookfield overlords.
Yeah, and we'll get to a super chat that mentions that in just a moment here, because I have another one from Mad Lab Press that gives $6.99. This is real journalism. Thank you. I think that was in response to Alexa's expose of an Antifa cell being within the DND. So thank you very much. And we agree, Alexa and Guillaume, her videographer, are doing amazing in the field work. C700 Angus gives $5. I'm sure Brookfield will do well in the American economy. Yeah, exactly.
They are. They're building pipelines there.
Exactly. And then Same gives another $5 and says, Sheila, do land taxes pay for education in Alberta?
Yeah, they're allocated on your property taxes, and you can sort of indicate which system you want to direct them to. So they're not sent to a big pot of money. You get to like check the box on where you want to send your portion of your property taxes that is allocated for education. So again, the funding follows the child in the household.
We have the same in Ontario, except you only have two choices. It's public or Catholic. And so they're both public, ostensibly. Just one has a religion class, basically, and the other one doesn't. By all other intents and purposes, they're basically the same system. And there is no choice. You have options, and where your catchment is, there's this one or this one. And you get to decide, is it public or Catholic? And more parents are saying no. We have unprecedented levels of parents fleeing this system because it is just a complete failure, and it's not serving the kids, including the ones that have special or more needs than your typical neurotypical child, as they say. It's failing everyone. And so shoehorning everyone into this one size fits all little box and expecting them to sit down and be quiet and listen and don't disrupt isn't working for the majority of children, especially when you're shoehorning 35 of them into one classroom with one teacher who is exhausted. It's not working. But anyway, we're about 4 minutes past the hour, so I think we will wrap this one up. Thanks, Sheila, for joining me live from the farm behind you there. Hopefully by 2 p.m., 2 p.m. Mountain Time?
Yeah.
When the courts are done for the day. And if you haven't heard by that point, then the ostriches are safe for another day. So stay tuned, because I believe it'll be Drea and Sheila tomorrow on the Roundup to give everyone a weekly debrief ahead of Thanksgiving weekend. And
just so you know, we also have confirmed Chris Dacey on the panel. He's walking around. I saw him headed for breakfast when we were on a commercial break, and I said, hey, Chris, are you gonna just join us tomorrow? So it'll be the ostrich panel tomorrow. I'm not sure who the fourth will be, but it'll be Drea, Chris Dacey, who's here.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for your super chats, for joining in, for watching, and for supporting our efforts. It wouldn't be possible without all of you at home. Thanks to everybody in the back end who make sure the stream runs smoothly and everything is ready for you to be able to find us easily. And of course, thanks again, Sheila, for joining from the farm. And we'll see you all same time and place tomorrow ahead of Thanksgiving weekend. Until that time, stay sane and question everything.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Canadians do remember the last election where that Prime Minister promised to put elbows up. It was not a promise, it was the promise that he ran on. Now those elbows have come down, the American tariffs have doubled, we have by far the weakest economy in the G7, 86,000 people have lost their jobs, and the Prime Minister went pathetically to the White House to offer a $1 trillion gift, bowing before the President in weakness. $1 trillion, Mr. Speaker. Speaking of the last election, where in his platform did he promise to give $1 trillion of our investment dollars to the Americans?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the Leader of the Opposition that there is a thing called the private sector. The private sector.